All right, so by this point, you probably heard about GPT-4o. The O is for OMNI model, and it's the new flagship model that can reason across audio, vision, and text in real time. The demos were very cool, but let's dive deep into what's behind this thing. So GPT-4o, O is for OMNI, or OMNI model, as they said in the announcement, is a step towards a much more natural computer interaction because it can accept any combination of text, audio, and image, and generates any combination of text, audio, and image outputs, and can respond to audio inputs in as little as 232 milliseconds, which is similar to a human response time in conversation, which is what I've noticed in the demo. It was near instant. It didn't feel like there was a delay. It's also much faster and 50% cheaper in the API. And it's especially better at vision and audio understanding. Now, we had a voice mode before with GPT-4 and GPT 3.5, but the latencies there were 2.8 seconds with GPT 3.5 and 5.4 seconds with GPT-4 on average. And it wasn't too bad, but it didn't feel like a conversation. It felt like talking on a walkie-talkie, kind of back and forth. You say your piece over, and then you wait for the response. Now, how they did that is they used a pipeline of 3 separate models. And this is kind of important to understand what's different about GPT-4o. So before that, it was kind of this stitched together Frankenstein of 3 separate models. One simple model transcribed audio to text, right? Then the GPT model takes in text and outputs text, so it processes that. And then the third model converts that text back to audio. So it's Whisper to GPT-4 to whatever they use to output, but like 11 Labs kind of does that text to audio. I'm sure they have their own voice engine or whatever they call it. But this process means that the main source of intelligence, GPT-4, the reasoning engine, if you will, it loses a lot of information. It can't directly observe the tone, if there are multiple speakers or background noises, and it can't output laughter, singing, or expressing emotions. With this GPT-4o, it's one model that's trained end-to-end across text, vision, and audio, meaning that all inputs and outputs are processed by the same neural network. Because GPT-4o is the first model combining all of these modalities, we are still just scratching the surface of exploring what the model can do and its limitations. Here they give an example of where you're giving it prompts to create images. With writing on a page, then you're adding more to the writing on that page. So this was paragraph 1, then you added a paragraph 2, and it shows up here on that page. It's a little bit garbled, but it's readable. And here you're tearing up that page, which this is kind of crazy. It's able to do character design, such as Giri the robot, or create a caricature view from an image, right? So you put this as input, and there it is. And this is kind of a big deal because here they're talking about doing something that's text to font. So you're saying the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever, displayed in 3 rows, displayed as one would showcase a font in a font book, and then you're describing the font. It's one that combines both futuristic but retro elements, a molded stamped font, and there it is. It creates that font, displayed in 3 rows as you requested. And you continue for the rest of the alphabet, and it looks like it just created its own brand new font. Here's another one. This is an ultra-futuristic font that is a signature of the artificial intelligence revolution. We have to get in on the ground floor of this. This is the future. And here it goes creating the rest of the font, which is just, this seems like a big deal. Here's a old-fashioned steampunk Victorian font that looks ornate and belongs on a steam engine. And here it goes creating the entire alphabet. Here we're creating a visual narrative. We create Sally the mail woman. Sally the mail woman is standing facing the camera with a smile on her face. So while the outputs are not perfect, the fact that it generates the consistent characters from text is impressive. So here's Sally the mail woman being chased by a dog. Uh-oh, Sally has tripped. I don't like where this is going. Oh, but it's okay. It's a golden retriever and he just wants to play. Here's some more visual stuff with cubes stacking. Then concrete poetry, if you give them, for example, the OpenAI logo, and we say concrete poem in the outer shape of the OpenAI logo composed of the word OMNI, which I gotta say, that's pretty close I mean, it's certainly very similar to the logo. Here's the same thing, dark mode and rainbow text. And there's a number of other ones that they talk about. Here's just the last one that we'll look at, 3D object synthesis. So it actually outputs a 3D rendering of the OpenAI logo. Wow. We're going to have to test if I'm able to do that. I got to say, that seems pretty cool. Here's another example with a sea lion that's turned into a 3D image. What's interesting to me is whenever a new model from OpenAI comes out, and not just OpenAI, but others, we completely kind of like lose our minds and are so impressed with it. And very quickly, a few months go by and it doesn't feel like magic anymore. And you feel kind of silly about how excited you got. But I gotta say, right now, this seems incredible and groundbreaking and exciting. And I'm sure in a few months, once all the other open source models catch up, it won't quite seem like a big deal. But for now, let's take a look at the model evaluations. So keep in mind that GPT-4o is twice as fast and half the price. So it seems like GPT-4o, the new one, reaches the level of GPT-4 Turbo, while beating it on things like multilingual, audio, and vision capabilities. So here you see this purple line, that's the new model GPT-4o. I'm just gonna start calling it OMNI. Orange is GPT-4 Turbo, green is Claude 3 Opus, and they put both the Gemini Pro 1.5 and the Gemini Ultra 1.0. Interestingly, also they have Llama 3, the big unreleased model, 400 billion parameters. But as you can see, GPT-4 Omni either beats them or is very close. It's certainly fair to say it's as good as or better than all the other state-of-the-art models. The new Omni model sets a new high score of 88.7 on the zero shot, meaning no examples given, the chain of thought MMLU. Also, one complaint or problem that these models had is that they were more efficient in terms of language tokenization, how many tokens they used to sort of compress these languages. They were a lot more efficient in English than in most other languages, right? So here it's seeing that this new Omni model is much more efficient. I'm seeing, 3.5x, 3x, 2x reduction. They're using much less tokens, which of course makes them a lot better in those languages, makes them faster, cheaper to use, etc. They have a section about model safety and limitations. This is the interesting one. They're saying, we recognize that GPT-4o's audio modalities present a variety of novel risks. Today, we are publicly releasing text and image inputs and text outputs. And over the upcoming weeks and months, they'll be working with user input via post-training and adding various safety features to be able to release the other modalities. For example, launch audio outputs will be limited to a selection of preset voices. So maybe in the future, we might be able to have custom voices or our own voices talking to us. But for now, or when it launches, it'll be just a pre-select few. So in the live presentation, they were saying that their goal is to make a lot more things available on the free tier. I believe they mentioned specifically advanced data analytics. They're also making GPT-4o available on the free tier with some limits. So Plus users will have 5 times more message limits. But they're saying we'll roll out the new version of voice mode, so kind of the cool demo thing that we've been seeing, and its alpha state within ChatGPT Plus, meaning the paid version. They'll be doing that in the coming weeks. Developers can now access GPT-4o in the API as a text and vision model. And again, it's 2 times faster, half the price, and has 5 times higher rate limits compared to GPT-4 Turbo. And the audio and video capabilities will be launched to a small group of trusted partners in the coming weeks. So we might have to wait quite a bit for the public release of the audio and video capabilities. Interestingly, Sam Altman updated his blog with his latest thoughts on GPT-4o, with his thoughts on this new model. He's pointing out that they're putting very capable tools in the hands of people for free. They're doing it without ads, which is his retort to a lot of people that are saying that OpenAI is not open, meaning not open source. He's saying we are on a mission to provide very capable AI models to the world for free or at a very low price, which you got to kind of give it to him. He's not wrong. He is doing that. ChatGPT is globally accessible. And currently I'm on chatgpt.com, so they got a brand new URL. And I think they said you do not have to be logged in anymore. So I have the option to sign up, but if I click stay logged out, that is pretty cool. I'm able to interact with ChatGPT 3.5 at least without logging in. And there it is. I gotta say, that can't be cheap. I'm just saying our initial conception was when we started OpenAI that we'd create AI and use it to create all sorts of benefits for the world. Instead, it now looks like we'll create AI and then other people will use it to create all sorts of amazing things that we all benefit from. We are a business and will find plenty of things to charge for, and that will help us provide free, outstanding AI service to hopefully billions of people. Next, he's saying that this new voice and video mode is the best computer interface he's ever used. It feels like AI from the movies. If you've ever seen that movie, Her, it seems like we're kind of approaching that. He's saying that it's still a bit surprising to him that it's real. Getting to human level response times and expressiveness turns out to be a big change. And yeah, watching the demos, it's very responsive. If you start talking, the way it stops talking seems a little bit sudden, like it just kind of pauses mid-sentence, mid-word. It doesn't sound like a human being that stops talking. It sounds like, hitting pause on something. But I gotta say, that's probably so much better than adding a lag or anything like that. It might take a little bit of getting used to, but that lightning fast response time is incredible. You're saying talking to a computer never really felt natural for me. Now it does. In one of the very recent interviews, maybe 2 days ago before the launch of this new model, Sam Altman said that he believes that the iPhone is one of the best pieces of tech that humanity has. And to me, it sounds like they made a deal with Apple to integrate OpenAI's technology into the iPhone. I mean, it certainly seems like having some assistant like that built into the iPhone that maybe is not available other places, that would certainly be a big, big deal for Apple. So I'm not going to read this next tweet, but if you know this person, he is kind of notorious for jailbreaking these models pretty much as fast as they come out. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, but GG easy, he says. Ethan Malik updates the MMLU benchmarks by hand by adding the Llama 300 billion. So I think this is the 400 billion. Mark Zuckerberg kept saying 405 when he was referring to it. So maybe it's 405 billion parameters. And so it looks like that's where that model is. And here is GPT-4o. So it sure looks like OpenAI is back as the king, not only by the benchmarks, but also by having the features that no one else has. Well, it's not looking good for Google. And this is what actually was popping through my head as I was thinking about some of the benchmarks. So first of all, as Andrew Gallagher says, this new model isn't just speech synthesis, it's sound synthesis. It can generate the sounds of coins, clanging on metal, and the model responds, pretty much as fast as you would ever want it to. I'm sure some further optimizations can make the lag even shorter, but why? I feel like after you get to the point where it's as fast as a human being answering you, you've arrived. There's no point of pushing it faster. And of course, the Grok chip, the Grok with a Q, that was the really big deal about it. It was able to take something like Llama 3 and you'd be able to speak back and forth with it in almost real time because of how fast that chip kind of processed everything. But it wasn't quite as fast as the demos that we've seen with the OMNI model. It was fast, but there was still a little bit of a delay, more so than what you would expect a person to take before answering. GPT-4o is faster. So here's Robert Scoble. He's saying, playing with OpenAI's new O model is fast. Is Grok dead? It seems to me that the OpenAI demos this morning had a hidden agenda to tell developers that we're fast now. After all, to run a personal assistant, everything needs to run fast. And it's true, a lot of the sort of subtle messaging was pointing out how fast it was. Even Sam's blog post kind of mentioned some of those themes as well. Since a lot of people are building systems with OpenAI in the middle, I'm seeing a lot of celebrations about how much faster things are running. Is it fast enough for you? Well, I just booted up my app and it looks like I also have the GPT-4o. GPT-4o, can you say something?
Hey there. Sounds like you're having fun with your app. How's it going? Anything specific you need help with?
Can you sing me a story about a pirate ship in space?
Sure. Here's a little space pirate story for you. In the dark of the cosmic sea, a pirate ship sailed.
So based on the response time and just looking at the interface, that's still the old voice engine or whatever you want to call it. It's not the new voice engine, which is what we expected since that's kind of what they spelled out in the blog post. Model availability, the new audio and video capabilities will only be rolled out to a small group of trusted partners in the API. So again, I think there's some confusion going on in the comments and in the thread because I got to say, in the live demo stream from OpenAI headquarters, I thought that it did sound like they were saying this is all going out to the free tier and rolling out over the next couple of weeks. But this kind of, obviously states something very different. They're saying, well, it's got to be red teamed, it's got to be tested. And who knows how long that's going to take. If they run into issues, it could take a while. So we don't have a definite date yet. Some people are saying Grok is still about twice as fast. And again, Grok, they're talking about chip, not the Elon Musk's new company. But again, we're not comparing apples to apples because when people are running Llama 3 on Grok, for example, they're still using some sort of a speech to text and then text to speech interface. Whereas this new OMNI model, it looks like it's just all in one, capable of taking in audio, outputting audio, all within that one model. It's going to be faster. I feel like no matter how fast the Grok chip is, just the transcribing, then running inference, then outputting it as voice, it's just going to take time. Milliseconds maybe, but still, it's probably going to be longer than if you have something like this running on just one model, I would assume, right? So audio inputs in as little as 232 milliseconds with an average of 320 milliseconds. So in a third of a second, it takes in your sentence, generates a response, and outputs the audio. And the lag between when you finished your sentence and when it starts responding is an average of 320 milliseconds. I don't think we have anything close to that. But please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. Here's a great example. So this is Nick Dobos, great builder, doing really great in the custom GPT store. So I think this is a great way of understanding. So this is in response to a comment saying anyone saying OpenAI's demo was underwhelming either doesn't understand the tech or just pretending to be unimpressed, just for the sake of it. And this is kind of the point. It's so fast because it's a single integrated model that understands everything instead of using multiple models. And the speed is just the symptom. It's the thing that we see. It's the thing that's obvious to us. What we haven't seen yet, and the thing that I think will be even more impressive once we see it, is that whole idea that the reasoning engine, GPT-4, the source of intelligence, it doesn't get all of the data, right? It's sort of, we speak something and that kind of gets compressed to just text, right? It loses facial expressions, it loses intonation, it loses all context other than the written word, right? So most of it. And then after GPT-4 processes that information and responds, it also can't output all the other stuff that it might be able to, right? The old system, you spoke, then something like Whisper from OpenAI, right? You transcribe it into text, GPT gets the text, answers, and then that text gets, text to audio back to you. Now you're speaking directly to the model and it's answering back. There's no AI model centipede thing happening here. Here's an example of it analyzing, we're not sure what, but it analyzes very quickly hero information and hero superpowers. There it is. Wow, that is extremely fast. It looks like it does near instant insights and does visual representations, visual charting of whatever it is. They're talking about superpower distribution. I just realized that Sam Altman was live tweeting the live stream, which I was also live tweeting the stream, and now I kind of feel silly. Interestingly, we now know the real identity of that mystery model that we saw in the chatbot arena that went by the name I'm also a good GPT-2 chatbot. It's especially good at coding by quite a bit, it seems. It's half the price and twice as fast. Real-time voice and video feels so natural. It's hard to get across just by tweeting. We'll roll it out in the coming weeks. Yeah, I really hope this is the case. This blog post makes it seem like it might be longer, but the fact that Sam Altman is saying that it's just a few weeks for real-time voice and video. And this is interesting. So he noticed this. He's saying video. So we'll come back to that in just a second, but he's saying the new voice mode will be live in the coming weeks for Plus users. One interesting thread was by Dr. Jim Fan. So he posts a fairly long thread, but then corrects it saying, I stand corrected, GPT-4o does not natively process video stream. The blog says it only takes image, text, and audio. That's sad, but the principle said still holds. But in this original post, again, we have to kind of get some clarifications about the video aspect of it. But Dr. Jim Fan kind of concludes here saying, I didn't expect GPT-4o to be closer to GPT-5, the rumored Arrakis model that takes multimodal in and out. In fact, it's likely an early checkpoint of GPT-5 that hasn't finished training yet, which is interesting to think about. Dr. Jim Fan is, of course, senior AI researcher at NVIDIA, probably very plugged into what's happening. So the fact that he's kind of giving credibility to this idea of Arrakis and this potentially being an early checkpoint of GPT-5, certainly very interesting. He's saying notably the assistant is much more lively and even a bit flirty. OpenAI is trying to make it sound like Her, like the movie Her. They're eating character AI's lunch, which I did notice. Yeah, it seemed a bit flirty at times, like certain emotional responses were very, like this giggle and then like, oh, stop, or something like that. Or I think it said, you're making me blush at some point while giggling. So I guess we'll all find out how easily manipulated we are by AIs in the upcoming months. And he's saying whoever wins Apple first wins big time. He sees 3 levels of integration with the iOS. Ditch Siri. OpenAI distills a smaller tier, purely on-device GPT-4o for the iOS with optional paid upgrade to use the cloud. Native features to stream the camera or screen into the model. Chip-level support for neural audio/video codec. And Apple had published some research into Realm, kind of a vision model on device for being on the iPhone, kind of understanding context about what the user wants. And then integrated with iOS system level action API and smart home APIs. This could become the AI agent product with 1 billion users from the get-go. The FSD for smartphones with a Tesla scale data flywheel. If you saw the All In podcast and their very recent interview with Sam Altman, all of this makes a lot of sense kind of based on what they were talking about. Get into the iPhone, it already has the cameras, the voice, the home integration, home automation, smart home, etc. It would be a massive win for Apple. They have tons of those on-device chips that potentially could be capable of running some sort of a scaled-down version of GPT-4o. And also, this seemed like a pretty big win for Apple, having something like this on their devices, especially if it's a little bit more exclusive. Certainly, I don't think OpenAI will be dealing with Google. They won't be on Android phones in terms of an integrated assistant. And 1 hour ago, the company behind the Arena chatbot posted this breaking news. GPT-2 chatbot's results is now out. Sam Altman, during his live tweet, I think, that chart kind of confirms that this new model, the OMNI model, is I'm also a good GPT-2 chatbot. So it looks like they had 3 different, whatever they were, checkpoints or 3 different versions of it. And the one that we're getting, or the ones that we have already, is this one, the highest ranked one. And I guess the public version GPT-4o will appear on the leaderboard soon. So it sounds like they're just going to switch this to GPT-4o, the model that it actually was. OpenAI is asking, what would you like to ask GPT-4o? We'll pick some live prompts to do on our live stream happening right now. Let's see what people suggest. Please need the prompt. Nope. It would be entertaining if they took whatever he has there and put it on the live stream. But again, not touching that with a 10-foot pole. I think for most people, GPT-4o is live if you're on the chat plan. So the playground is available. Of course, no voice, no audio, right? Just a text. ChatGPT is available on device and on the desktop. It sounds like they're rolling out pretty fast. But what do you think this means? Does this change your opinion of where things are going? Does it feel like this kills a lot of other companies, a lot of other platforms, all the people that were trying to do voice in combination with Llama or ChatGPT? I mean, this kind of seems like it really cripples those companies quite a bit, because at this point, it's obvious that what we had before, the idea of transcribing voice back and forth, is just inferior to something like this new O model that is just all in one, audio in, audio out. What does that do to all the companies like Grok and Vappy, that company where you can make phone calls with the AI agents? I mean, they'll still be around, but it seems like their success might be short-lived, especially if you think about the fact that Maybe Facebook might be able to catch up and release an open source, Llama 4 or whatever that has the same capabilities. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. I feel like this is bigger than what's priced in, if you will. I think OpenAI is very clearly setting the message that if you're going to build, you build on top of OpenAI. And those are the companies that are going to do well. If you're trying to add something to improve it or add a missing feature to what OpenAI is supposed to be, it seems like there's a limited runway for that. Am I wrong? Do you think different? Let me know what your thoughts are. And if you're ready to put some of this stuff to good use, join my community, Natural 20, where we're all learning to build with AI, building autonomous AI agents, and working together to learn together and help each other. If this stuff is interesting to you, I'll put the links in the description below. The world is changing fast. Don't get left behind. My name is Wes Roth. Thank you for watching.